actually starting to work on the last piece for our Christmas tree skirt. It's the center, and after we get this done, then we'll just have the joining and then we are done. So today let's get started on this one. So let's take a look at the finished centerpiece. As you see, it's just loops. And this is by far the easiest of the pieces that we are making, and I am not going to crochet it on this video sort of stitch by stitch. Instead, the number of stitches will be shown on the screen all the time, and we'll look together at some of the parts where there's a change. You see here that there's a slightly thicker line, and that's where we have the slip stitches at the start of each row. And then there are two parts here. One is in here, where you, instead of having one loop going into a loop, you have two. So that's what increases it and keeps it the right shape. And then there's another one like that towards the end here. So let's start on it. I have a slip knot, and to start with we need 36 foundation single crochets or chainless foundation stitches. We were using the same when we were starting the colorful piece, so that you first chain 2 and then you make a stitch into the first one of it, but you leave it on the hook, then a yarn over and through one loop, yarn over and through both, and then you keep going like that. Take both of the loops on the hook there, make a stitch through one and then through both. So this is the way you get the chain and the first row of single crochets at the same time. So again, I'm taking the stitches there, making a stitch here, and like this until you get 36. Here I have 36, and then I'm joining it using a slip stitch, so it forms the central ring like that. And now we'll start making loops, and on this row it's that you always chain 5 and skip 2. So you skip 2 and make a single crochet, a loop of that size. So like that round the whole thing, chain 5 and skip 2 and a single crochet right round. That gives us 12 loops, and now that I'm at the end, I'll make slip stitches so I get to the middle of the first loop. And from now on we just skip from one loop to the next, and the only thing that changes is the number of stitches. And this is actually the same, so on this row you also have just 5. Don't need to increase yet. So always 5, and then you jump to the next loop. Here I am at the end of that row, and then I'm finishing it off. Every time you finish off a row by putting your hook into the same stitch where you started. So don't go spiraling sort of round. That makes it harder to count. And every time then slip stitches into the middle. And the next row still is exactly the same. You chain 6 and jump from loop to loop. That's the third row finished, And the next row is different in that we will double the number of the loops. And first just 2 slip stitches, so you won't go right to the middle, but here like that there. And then chain 5. Each loop has 5 chain stitches. And then you make the loop into the same loop. So this one has 2. And then 5 again. And now you skip. And then the next loop attaches into this same loop. So chaining 5 and into that same one where that one was. So it's all the time like this here. And at the end of the row we'll have 24 loops instead of just 12. So you keep going like this the whole row. So now we have doubled the number of loops we have, and we are actually keeping that now until row 12. So from the next row is 5 and then up till 12. It's always just the same. You go in the middle using slip stitches, and you have a certain number of stitches. You just jump from one loop to another, and the only thing that changes is how many stitches you have here. And you have a list of that on the screen as well as in the blog. There's a small I at the top right hand corner of the screen, and that's a link to the blog. So you can get the numbers there too if you don't want to read them on the screen. And we start with 5. And so on. That's 12 rounds done. And now on the next one then we will again increase like we did further down here, so that there will be 2 loops into every loop. And after that then we'll have 48 loops on every row. Just 4 chain stitches on each one here, on this here whole row. And then just always jumping into the next one, and then 1 loop that attaches into the same loop as the previous one. So it will go like this here for the whole row. There. And again, for the last few rows you see the numbers of stitches on the screen as well as in the blog. And here we have all the 16 rows done. So that's the center finished. And next time we are going to join all the pieces. And as you remember, before we can join them, you will need to have 6 like this and 6 like this. Okay, so it won't be long now that we'll have our Christmas tree skirt finished.